tell me below in the comment section why the Natty or Not videos are so popular, because I don't get it.
Why do you think people get so uptight about Natty or Nots?
This is why. People are looking for an excuse why they suck.
Friends, Brian here for Middle-Aged Mind and Muscle, and I got to make a really important video, and I really need to talk to you guys, so I'm actually going to lift the shades up a little bit so you guys can see my eyes, because I'm being very serious, genuine, and authentic in this video. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm a dude who's been lifting since I was 12 years old, into my 20s, did some crazy stuff, 30s, I neglected my body and my health because I was working all the time, probably upwards of 80 hours a week at least. And then in my 40s, I got back into lifting before I got too old, did some crazy shit. Now I'm in my 50s. I got very sick in 2022, put on a lot of weight. This channel started as like a therapeutic vlog for me. But I took some time to figure out where am I going with this channel, and I need to talk to you guys about something very serious, okay? I'm going to talk to you guys about steroids, social opinion on it, Mike O'Hearn, and this whole Natty or Not craze. I've been very opinionated on this in the past, but I'm going to try and be more polite, more respectful, and just give you guys the honest truth. The Liver King, the documentary, I did my review on it. I don't think the Liver King's a good guy, okay? Let's just get right to the chase. He was deceptive. He made a lot of money. He was giving people false ideas. He was denying the truth. But if you watch the documentary and you see some of the things he used to do when he worked at GNC, he'd return all kinds of supplements. GNC had a policy. He would return them even though he worked there to another GNC and get the money for it. He made drugs out of his apartment and sold them to people. He's not a good guy. I'm sorry. He's not a good guy, okay? Yes, I can understand people being angry about the whole steroid thing because of that. I know coming up in the 80s, when I really got into lifting, and into the 90s, you know, you'd buy the muscle magazines and you'd be like, well, I'm taking these supplements, but, you know, even though I'm getting bigger and stronger, I don't look like these guys. Like, what am I missing? And for years, I didn't understand until, you know, I started to learn the game. I realized very early on that, you know, I wasn't Mr. Olympia, but genetically there was something there. I was stronger than everybody else in my school. Even the kids that were taking steroids, I got accused of taking steroids in high school. I never did. It was something that I never thought about until I got well into my 20s. I was quite strong for being a natural guy. When I was in high school, the whole Ben Johnson thing, steroids became a hot topic. You know, I started training. I grew up in the city of Ottawa. That's where Iain, Valliere, and Bumstead are from. They weren't even an idea then. You know, I trained at the most hardcore gym as a teenager. It was called the YMCA out in Nepean, which is a suburb of Ottawa. All the hardcore guys are there. They're all huge, and I started hearing about little rumors about steroids and stuff, and I had a chip on my shoulder, and I was an asshole. Like, I used to have to put it in people's face. Like, I was so judgmental. I hated people who took steroids. I judged them. I knew nothing about it. And when people will say to me, hey man, you're pretty strong, and I'd say, yeah, but I'm all natural. I had to put it in people's faces all the time, especially if I knew they were taking something or I was suspicious of it. As I got into my 20s, life changed, and I started to learn the game, and I started to understand it, and I started to realize, you know, hey, I was a real asshole when I was younger. You know, we all have our own paths to pick in life, which brings me now to this whole Natty or Not thing. You know, when you have a YouTube channel, and YouTube channels can be a lot of work. Even now, I've invested in a new camera. I want to go in a good direction with this channel. I'm in my 50s. If we look around, we have a very sick society. I don't want to look like the way most men look in their 50s, but it's a trap that you can fall into very easily. I did for a while. My 52nd birthday is coming up in a couple of months. I'm doing okay. You know, I want to have value to my channel. I want it to be good. I could start doing Natty or Not and going down that road. You know, all due respect to Greg Doucette, like some of his videos, I'll watch them and go, I don't get it. Like, why did so many people tune in to watch that? Also, John Bravo, I don't understand why people give a shit about Wes Watson so much. Who fucking cares about that guy? Fuck that guy. Who cares? My point being is in these Natty or Not videos, I get it to a point. I get the anger. You know, and I know a lot of natural lifters are angry, you know, and I see some of these guys who are natural lifters who are amazing athletes. They're amazing. And then I go on their YouTube channel, and what do they talk about? They talk about steroids all the time and about judging people who use steroids. And I'm like, dude, like, you're a fucking beast and you're natural. Who cares? Promote natural lifting. Be proud of your choice. Why do people care so much? You know, like, I'm going to tell you guys a couple of stories, and then we will get to Michael Hearn and this whole Natty or Not thing. A few years ago, when I was kind of competing, I was just trying to see how strong I was. In my 40s, I didn't want to become one of those guys in my 50s who had to hang on to that lift because it defined who he was. Guys, your body's not built for that in your 50s. You can still do amazing things, but you got to train differently. You got to be smarter, and all that shit's coming on my channel. I had a young fellow approach me. I'm going to say in 2018 maybe, I was very strong at deadlifting, doing 700 for reps, and I was in my late 40s, mid to late 40s. And I had put a lot of work into getting my conjugate training and understanding it. And he came up to me and he said, you know, I want to be, how come I'm not as strong as you at deadlifting? And he was like 21 at the time, or 22. And then he told me what he was taking. He was taking 3,000 milligrams of testosterone, or 3 grams. And I said, number one, why would you do that to your body at your age? Screw up all your hormones at that age. What is the point of doing that? And number two, I had to explain to him genetics. It's like, dude, it's not going to matter what you take. You're not going to be doing what I'm doing. You know, I know a lot of natural people, they have this fantasy. They're like, hey, you know, once I take some D-ball and do my first cycle, I'm going to look like Ronnie Coleman. And it's like, no, you're not. It's so hard educating people. And then I look at our society, and there's so many people. Go out to a shopping mall, go to a shopping center, and look at people over 40. How do people look? 99% of the people, right? People do a lot of unhealthy things, but then they see someone who's in shape and go, oh, if I took steroids, I'd look like that. Okay. We live in a really messed up society. You know, even right now as we speak, I'm thinking about this kid I knew years ago. He would do tren, and his bench press max was 225. I'm like, you got to fucking take tren to bench press 225 pounds? What the fuck is wrong with you? So when you hear about all these guys back in the day who didn't take a lot of stuff, but who trained really hard, getting pharmaceutical grade drugs, Arnold, Tom Platz, all those guys that are accused a lot of lying, no, they weren't. They weren't lying. They're just like, that was what we did. We trained, and you know, you trained 5 or 10 years naturally and built a foundation, and then it's like, okay, I've paid my dues. Now, okay, if I'm going to do this, maybe I'll start thinking about it.
Is Michael Hearn natural?
Oh my God, I would bet $1 million against $1. The better question is, how much is this guy on?
So when I see someone like Michael Hearn, I say, okay, is Mike perfect? No, Mike's done some goofy shit. And if I ever meet Michael Hearn, I'd tell it to his face. I'd say, Mike, what the hell was with the duck eggs? What is that about? But again, I'm 52. Michael Hearn's a few years older than me. I've been no angel. I'm doing okay for my age. There's not a lot of guys who are going to be 52 who look the way I do. I'm not Mr. Olympia, but I look all right. I'm doing pretty good, but I don't look like Michael Hearn. I'm still fairly strong. I'm not as strong as I was a few years ago. If I trained with Michael Hearn, he'd wipe the floor with me. A lot of 52-year-old men couldn't do what I do. But I also know that Mike's been on the cover of magazines since the early 90s. I remember. I was there. I remember seeing him on, he would be in Muscle Mag, he'd be on Flex, he would be in Muscle and Fitness.
The reason that he's questionable is he's been the same size for 40 years.
I could take
same
HRT
strength,
and be the same size for 40 years.
But if you take it for 40 years, at some point you're going to get some type of effect.
Okay, when you see a lot of these guys that were really in the news for bodybuilding in the 90s, where are they now? Some of them are retired. Some of them are doing their own thing. Dorian Yates is doing his own thing. He doesn't look like he used to, you know, and nor could he maintain the drug cycling that he was doing at that time. A lot of people, some of them are dead. Could it be from steroids? Could be. Yeah, maybe. Don't know. Could it not be? Could it be from other things? Could be. Yeah. At some point, we all die. Some of us, whether we take steroids or not, do die in our 40s. Some of us die in our 50s. Some of us die we don't know. So when I see someone like Mike, if I got the opportunity to meet Mike, maybe one day I'll have an interview with him on this channel, I would just talk to him and say, you know, Mike, I don't know what's going on, but whatever you're doing something right, and it can't be that you've been on trend for 40 years. You can't do it. Some might argue the genetics. He's been training consistently for 40 years and eating really good nutrition. I'm not saying that my genetics were like Mike O'Hearn, but mine weren't bad. There was something to it. I've had years where I didn't touch the weights, where I ate like shit, neglected my health, abused my body in different ways. I'm no Mike O'Hearn. So you know what? Good for you, Mike, for doing whatever you're doing. And my hat's off to you. And for all the people that want to run him down and say whatever, I don't know, maybe Mike's trying to sell you something. I don't know. I get the anger, though. I get it from the natural perspective. But it's just one of those things, guys. Steroids are just something that people do. Any kind of pursuit in sports where you need to have better athletic performance, if you want to put on muscle, like in bodybuilding, how much muscle you can put on, or powerlifting, how strong you can be, it's going to be there. Of course, we got all these new things. Peptides, the technology's improving every month. There's new stuff. I don't even know what half the shit is out there anymore. Don't know, and I really don't care. But what I like to tell people is say, yeah, steroids are out there. But instead of worrying so much about who's taking steroids, focus on what you need to do. What are your goals? What do you need to do? Where's your deadlift at? Where's your squat at? You know, what do you need to do to put on a little more muscle? I tell people, train 5 years naturally. See what your body can actually do. I've known people, I've known young guys who would be on trend for 6 months, do these crazy cycles, make big changes, and then go off for 6 months and look like shit and just completely stop training. That never made sense to me. I've always been strong. When I'm consistent in the gym, I've always been strong. The times are changing, folks. I'm an old guy in my 50s. I just don't get it. I don't get the natty or not. I understand it a little bit. But you know, Greg Doucette is making a fortune off of those videos. And I'm like, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. Maybe I need to get into that. I don't know. And start making videos about this and accusing people of that and this and that. I don't know, man. The world's changing and it's hard to keep up. And John Bravo, I don't know, you're obsessed with Wes Watson. I couldn't care. I knew from the moment I first saw a video of Wes Watson, he's a dickhead. Don't care. Liver King, not a good guy. But, you know, I get the anger about him. I get that. Mike O'Hearn, whatever. You know, whatever Mike's doing, I got to know, because I don't think he's been on endless drugs for 40 years or 45 years. And, you know, he would mop the floor with me if I worked out with him. And for 52 years old, I'm doing pretty good. Don't know. Guys, put more effort into what you need to do. Whenever I go out to like some of the bigger gyms and I see all these teenagers and young people just sitting on their phones for 10 minutes in between sets, and then I watch them lift, I'm like, man, you got to put the natty or not videos away and really fucking focus on what you need to do, because you need some help. All I got to say, wishing you all the best. And you know what, guys? We can agree to disagree on this channel. You can fucking write in the comment section and tell me to fuck off, for all I care. The world's changing too with that. We're not allowed to disagree anymore. You don't have to agree with me. It's just my thoughts, but I am interested. Tell me below in the comment section why the natty or not videos are so popular, because I don't get it. I'm more thinking, I think more people should just really focus on what they need to do and not worry about what other people are doing, because I don't know. Maybe part of it, Jay Cutler had asked Greg Doucette in his podcast recently, why do you think they're so popular? And Greg Doucette said, well, because I think it makes people feel better about themselves. Think about it. It is what it is. This is Brian from Middle Age Mind and Muscle. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.